Teams, again, our focus. Teams interpreting PAYS data definitely leads us to better data-driven decisions. So we're excited that you're here with us today, and we have a lot of great things in store. Our expert panel, wow, our page is getting full. We're so happy to have some guests with us today that are helping monitoring the chat and the Q&A with Megan Blevins and Jeff Hogan, both systems change specialists with EPIS. Thank you so much for joining us. To the left, I'm going to start on the bottom of what I see on my screen is Jeff Colchin. Obviously, Jeff is our PAYS project lead for the state, and we're so happy with what Jeff and PCC do, all to support this great effort. Dr. Rose Baker, our PAYS principal investigator from Penn State University. She's probably going to be on the call with us again in the background, paying attention to Q&A, so know that she is at our disposal as well. Mary Johnston, Kelsey Kraft, our survey vendor in Bach Harrison. Mary should be a familiar face to you, as well as Kelsey. Mary joined us in December and in January, where she walked us through the new PAYS preliminary data highlight report. That was great. Our attendance was wonderful. And so we are so appreciative of all their great work as well. Sophia, our glue, our meeting and training support assistant. Thank you, Sophia, for all that you do. Phyllis Law, a face we all well know, at least for the past 12 years plus, supporting PAYS work throughout the state. I'm probably the newest face to the group. I'm the new PAYS support and development coordinator, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future as we advance PAYS together. For today, what we're looking for, Phyllis and I will share some content, obviously, with you, and we're so pleased to have some special guests with us. We're going to be calling these Voices from the Field. So we're happy to have Denise Continenza with us today, as well as Amanda Cserr. So from Lehigh County and Clarion, we welcome you. We're going to be turning the mic to them so they can share their successes as well with us throughout our time together. All right. So let's get focused here, and I think our team's polling will be coming to a close too. So one final reminder to complete the polls. But today we're really going to dive into 3 content areas. We're going to be looking at building or growing our data analysis team. Once we get around that table, what should our plan be looking like? And we're going to give you some pointers on how to direct that plan perhaps for you. And then finally, when we're diving into our data, what are some questions that we might ask of ourselves, ask of our data, ask of our team that may guide the process? So I believe we have a special guest in the audience with us today. We're excited to have Mr. Schiffert, Assistant Superintendent from Whitehall Copley District. And Mr. Schiffert is not a stranger to PAYS, but we felt that it would be great if he would welcome all of you and help us set a strong foundation for our conversation today by sharing what PAYS has done, I guess, for and with his district and community. So Mr. Schiffert, I'll turn the mic to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. I appreciate that, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. In our district, we've been using PAYS for quite some time now, and even when it was first proposed to us, it was something that we were very interested in because we understood that by gaining information from our students, we could really better direct different efforts in our district and with the help of our community to better serve our student body and our community at large. It really has become ingrained in what we do. It's no longer just, are we going to do it? It's absolutely, we're doing it. And the process has become very familiar with us as a school district because we've seen so many efforts come out of it. It really, it enlightens you as to what your kids are thinking, what they're seeing, what they're doing, how they're feeling. There's so much that you can say about what the survey provides to you as a school district and a community at large. So we've often said it is a roadmap, and that really is what it is. It is this roadmap that gives you a guide in putting together prevention efforts, but other things too. Like we have a very strong hunger initiative in our district that the community is largely involved in, and that really was born out of the PACE survey when we started to truly look at data and realize the hunger issues that our local community was facing. It got tackled head on, and it was because of the PACE survey. It was the root of it all, to where now I feel like we have, as a community and as a school district, we are providing food to everyone that needs it. And there's different outlets and different opportunities for our families to get food as needed. It's pretty amazing. When we look at the data, we can start to look at trends over time, whether they're positive or negative, and it helps us to figure out, like, are we doing our job? Are we meeting the needs of our kids and our community? We can celebrate what we're doing, which is something that as a school district, we struggle sometimes. We do so much in the areas of prevention and intervention in our district. We don't often talk about or celebrate what we're doing. And sometimes that is a negative for us because our community isn't always aware of all the things that we as a school district are doing. We are not a super large school district, but we're not tiny either. So sometimes we can be overshadowed by neighboring districts that are much bigger than us, but yet we're doing so many things too as a school district to help our kids. There's a lot of focus that PACE brings to you. It brings in a variety of programs, and Denise and I have often talked about the doors being opened, all the things that come in. I could give so many examples of things where we've provided public service information on vaping, as vaping became a major issue in our schools. We talked about a program where we alerted parents to those that host the most or host lose the most. Like if you are providing alcohol or a place for teens or kids to be involved in those type of activities, you could find yourself in some real hot water. And the PACE survey indicated by our kids that adults were actually providing the alcohol at times, and that there was this oblivious thought process, and we needed to work to correct that. There's so much programming that's occurred even recently with CBITS as a trauma-informed approach. We've had a strong connection to the United Way. This has come out of work that we've done with PACE and with Denise Continenza, who I'm sure you're going to hear from. Our district's been involved with a Handle with Care initiative. We have a trained trauma team. I could go on and on all day about the things that our district is doing that really in some way go back to the data that came out of PACE. So I don't want to keep babbling on, but hopefully I gave a good understanding of what we're doing and the excitement and enthusiasm that we have for using it.
Outstanding, Mr. Schiffert. We can't thank you enough for joining us and remaining on our call. It appears
Absolutely.
that you have built strong teams, and you've definitely utilized that data and you've gotten it off your shelf. So we're going to turn it over at this point to Phyllis. And Phyllis is going to give us some key nuggets specific to building and forming our analysis team. So Phyllis, I'll turn the mic to you.
Great, thanks, Kelly. So great to be here with y'all again. And I wanted to just, before I get started with about how to build a team, we actually had a question, and I wasn't sure if Mr. Schiffert was going to be able to stay with us the whole time, from Ron over, I believe, in Bucks County, if I'm not mistaken, Ron. And the question is, Chris, did y'all survey the 6th grade? And if so, did you get some backlash from parents about some of the questions being inappropriate for 6th graders?
We did pilot, my understanding, with the 6th grade this year. Or no, we did the 6th grade. We actually piloted with a lower grade.
With the 4th grade. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we did pilot with the 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
No, we did do the 6th. And to my knowledge, we have not received any real backlash. If it was extremely minimal because it didn't get brought to my level.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I didn't mean to catch you off guard with that. That was a little bit.
No.
But I wanted to make sure we got that question asked from Ron, because it is an important question. And, and I think one of the things that Mr. Schiffert pointed out to us, and as Kelly said, I think one of the ways to really help with some of those questions, this is just the way the school district does their work. It's the way they do business. They've done PACE forever. Everyone knows this is the way it happens. And I think a lot of times it is about that education piece and helping families understand the importance of PACE and why they're asking the questions are important. So thank you for the question and for the answer as well. So I'm going to take you through for the next few minutes to talk a little bit about who should be on your team, how do you bring a team together. One of the things that we know about analyzing PACE is the better your breadth and depth of those who come around your table, the better. We definitely want to really think about when you're recruiting and when you're thinking about, oh my goodness, how many people do I have to have how many do I have to have? How many people do I need around my table? The thing is, it's not necessarily about the number, because you really want to have an efficient and effective approach to looking at your data, but it is about thinking about the who as far as the diversity, the sector diversity. Also, like when you're thinking about who to recruit, think about the thought diversity. Who can bring a different way of thinking about data to your table? Additionally, thinking about those sectors and those possible members of your analysis team, of maybe they have data sets that you would like for them to bring as part of your overall analysis, because we like to say PACE starts the conversation, but we also know it's part of a bigger conversation. We also want to think about those who understand primary prevention and have that outreach with their data points and thinking about primary prevention and working with youth and families and utilizing this as a space to also develop those collaborative relationships. This is talking about data is a great way to get people to your table. And one of the things we're going to talk about today are some things that once you get them there, what to do. And I believe Kelly's going to walk you through a lot of that information this afternoon. But thinking about how do I recruit them? What does that look like? This today, and this will be a little bit of a theme. We all understand time is a precious, precious commodity that we all are under pressure every day. Things are changing. But the reality is when you're able to sit down, and what we really like about the processes that we have developed, we do believe it helps your team have a very focused space so that when they do come to the table, you can work, as I said, effectively and efficiently to get through the process of understanding what your kids are saying and feeling and all those great things that Mr. Schiffert shared with us. Well, another thing to do is to be really clear with them when you're reaching out of what this is going to look like. Asking them to come to a meeting to look at data, that's one thing to kind of, but how do what's going to be in it for them? You need to be able to talk about why it's important to analyze PACE with your group. You also need to get them to think about, the overarching purpose of this, because as again, Mr. Schiffert said, this idea of using the data to guide the work we're doing. We don't want it to be, a one and done. Yay, let's look at some data. We've talked about it. We've looked at it. We want this to become ingrained in the way that you do your business. So getting them, again, thinking about what's in it for them, again, opening up that space of collaboration, building those relationships, strengthening those relationships in a very uniform way is important. So how do you keep them coming back? That's always a really, hard thing, especially again with time being such a commodity. One of the things you want to really create around your table, as you're doing your analysis, and sometimes that table is a virtual table, which we'll talk about, but you want to have a very collaborative environment that folks feel that they're really bringing something to the table, but they're also taking away some new knowledge, maybe a new skill, something like that. Have a space that when you're working together, that everyone feels their voice is heard. Be sure that your meetings are facilitated in a way that everyone does have a voice around the table. That's also a very key piece that, again, we'll talk a little bit more about. This idea of that they really understand that all of this work is not about the me, but it's about the we, right? And we need to get everyone understanding what the me part of this is, right? But the big thing, and I really like this third bullet down here, I like thinking about this, that have someone feel like they are providing value, and then they feel valued when they're at your table. I think it's something really important that we all need to think about, because the big thing here is, we've talked, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the social development strategy, the idea of when you provide opportunities, skills, and recognition, this bonding occurs. Well, that model's really directed at youth development, but the reality is that whole concept works around this table. Bottom line, when people feel that they're learning something, they're contributing, that they're being a part of, a bigger picture, they're going to bond when they feel heard. And that's exactly what this is all about. Again, thinking about this in a way of thinking about diversity around your table. And diversity has a lot of meaning and a lot of different meanings, but really thinking about how you can have the broadest thought around your data, especially when it comes to prevention, and thinking about, as you're thinking about who to recruit, and this is a really great graphic of thinking about, remember, we're all around this space of looking at that, how we circle around those individual youth and families that we're working with. So when you're thinking about that, look to your community, look broadly throughout your schools, look at families within the community. There may be a space that, to bring them to the table, because remember, we're going to be making decisions around using this data to make decisions around some of the services we provide. And obviously that peer individual space, and we're going to talk about youth engagement here in a minute. So when you're thinking about true potential team members, this is a big, long laundry list here, and I'm certainly not going through every bullet, but it's really to kind of spark your thinking around outside of the box a bit. The school district list, it's long here. We've listed a broad scope of folks. This could be district level, it can be building level folks, it can be, your PTO, PTA representatives, and teachers. I love when teachers get involved. One thing that I will say is that I know with all of these areas, but most particularly within schools, we all are very protective of time right now. But I feel like that sometimes we want to provide those opportunities for those folks who we might not have thought about engaging in, before. And teachers many times will fall in that space. I used to teach school a long time ago, and I know that some of the things I remember most, I was a young teacher, but when I was engaged in a conversation that I felt was like, whoa, I'm invited there. What a great way to build skills and also broaden your thinking. And talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We also, looking at your community, thinking, the obvious, kind of thought would go to your service providers, looking at your coalitions, some things that definitely that Mr. Schiffert and his team are working on, but also think about faith, think about business, think about, family members who are a big part of your school. These are folks who really can help you think about your data. Also thinking about your system partners, these folks who are at your county level or maybe regional level, depending on where you live. And here's a really great list of the system partners to think about. Obviously, human services would be a place that we would naturally think to bring folks in, but also think about juvenile justice, think about your county commissioners, talk about empowerment. I've worked in communities where county commissioners were actually part of that data, that data analysis totally changed the way they thought about how they distributed money. What a great way to, again, educate them. Same thing with a district attorney, get your law enforcement involved. It's a really great way. But I really want to draw attention to the fact that you need that youth voice around your table. Hearing while, really getting them to put that, that extra input around, it's their data, it's their voice, but really increasing that voice and helping your team really look at the data and where the issues are moving forward. It also kind of helps you kind of think about, if you have questions like, I wonder what this is saying, you have youth at your table to help think that through a little more closely. And then also, maybe think about some other ways to get some other data if there's still a few questions hanging around. So don't forget about those youth when you're developing those teams. This is something I really love, this picture and graphic here, because I feel like I want you to think about when you're developing your team, and we think a lot about who's, who's going to bring what to the table. It's easy for us to think about bringing experience, those who know data, those who, what can they bring? Again, that bringing value and feeling valued, right? That being in that space. We also want to think about how we're building skills within those folks that maybe we haven't reached out to or haven't been engaged in the conversation in the past. Using this PACE data and a lot of the tools that Kelly's going to share with you here later on is a wonderful way to broaden your team, engage folks and especially like over time, getting those folks, because we know personnel changes, things happen, but you really want to get that team around your table that has a breadth and depth of knowledge and experience. You want those folks like myself that have been around a long time, but you also want the voice of those who haven't been around as long, the voice of the youth that, thinking about, and that's really another good point when you're bringing those youth around your table. Look at what you're teaching them. You're teaching them a lot about data analysis and all that, but also about how you meet with and present to adults. And I mean, a lot of skill sets there that you're building. So think about all of these things that are laid out here when you're looking at your team for sure. So one of the things that when you're thinking about data and you're thinking about what you want, and I mentioned earlier, we like to say PACE starts the conversation, but we know it's part of a larger conversation. One of the things that is important when you're thinking about other data sets or thinking about the people to build your team is to think about other data sets. So here we've got a really nice list of some school data, some student assistance program data, that'd be SAP data down here in the left-hand corner. And some of this is, I'll call supplemental data, really do, help you at that school level understand what's happening at school. On the right-hand side here, we also have some other data sets for you to think about, some alcohol, tobacco, other drug data, other substances use and our misuse data. Mental health data. Mental health is a big part of our conversation right now, which is very, very important. So look to your providers, look to your county for some of the substances and mental health data. Very, very important to supplement your conversation and tell your story. Juvenile justice data. That's another really good space to really help understand those youth who are a little bit further into that continuum. We can still work with them in that prevention space, but a little further in than universal in that big picture. But it's important to understand what's going on with all of all of our youth in all areas of their lives. And then finally, thinking about risk and protective data. PACE provides you one of the best sources of student reported data of what is causing their issue. That's the risk and protective factor part of the data. It's also important though that these kids have risk in all areas of their lives. Think about how you can incorporate those adverse childhood experiences, thinking about how you can incorporate the determinants of health. Think about, there's a lot of there's risk factors related to school that we know are out there. So think about really clearly who else has data sets that you want to bring to the table to do some really comparison, because what we're trying to do is really understand and tell our story of what's going on with our kids, right? So thinking about all of this will help you get good data as well as good team. We have, and I'm excited to turn it over now to Denise. She works with Mr. Schiffert that was here before. So Denise, it's all up to you.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm the community mobilizer for the CTC in Whitehall Copley, and we've been together, it's going on 11 years now. So one of the things, well, certainly having Mr. Schiffert at the helm has really been a big boost for us, because it's helped us to stay the course with the community. What the PACE has given our coalition purpose. It's created the reason why we come together, and it's prevented us from morphing into a networking group. It really, the center of our work is the PACE. And as Phyllis has said, it is a starting point, it's a jumping off point. We look at other sets of data and say, are we seeing the same thing? Are we seeing differences? And if so, why? It's allowed us to get into really rich conversations about the wellness of our youth and how we're doing things and what's working and what else we might need. Another analogy that I heard was that it helps us to shoot all our arrows in the same direction. So we don't have agency A doing one thing, agency B doing something else, a school doing something entirely different. We're all going in the same direction, and that direction is the one we decide to head in as we set our compass after doing the PAYS. And I think this has been said a few times now, we are able to see changes and trends, and we're able to celebrate our accomplishments, which makes us really happy. So our coalition has gotten to the point where it's like, oh, is it a PAYS year? Is it time to do PAYS again? So they're really looking forward to it. They know that the summer after PAYS is administered, that's the summer we spend digging into the data. And we reassure new people that, you see this huge report, 158 pages. It looks daunting, but don't worry, we walk you through it. There's a process, there's training that we provide. It's confidential. That's something that people often wonder about. Who's going to get their hands on this? We assure them, all our members, that this is confidential, and that also gives the coalition members a sense of ownership. Like, ooh, this is part of of what I do. This is this is for me. So there's that sense of ownership that it's something that we work on. They're getting a lot of support. Sometimes people around the table, especially newer folks, will say, well, is this going to be something, am I going to get money for my programs because I'm part of this PAYS review team? And the answer is maybe, because we know more and more when you apply for funds, funders want to know, well, you can't just be a lone shark, you have to be part of something bigger. So where's your coalition? Where's your board? So if what you bring to the table aligns with what we've identified as our priorities through PAYS, there could very well be a funding source for you. The data in the PAYS is so rich, it goes far beyond prevention, as Mr. Schiffert talked about with hunger. But for example, if a community wants to build a community center or convert a building, there might be data in that PAYS that would support such an effort. As a coalition, you may not do that, but with permission from the superintendent, you might be able to share that report or pieces of it. And how children, because there's questions about how the youth spend their out of school time, that could support the need for a community center. Or maybe not. Again, we're shooting all our arrows in the same direction of building protection and reducing risk. So it's really helped our coalition to function very efficiently. It's not the revolving door where somebody has a 3-year grant for such and such a program, and then the money runs out and the program's gone. We've had sustained efforts, and we really do celebrate. And one of the things we want to work on now is making that data public, the positive things, because it's so easy for people to see one bad example of something negative with our youth and then think that's reflective of the whole student body. So we want our community to know how good our kids are, and that's what PAYS affords us to do. Membership is dynamic, so while we have a consistent group, as our needs change, we invite new people in. We do stay the course as much as possible. We did see some changes, some needs come up with mental health, so we've invited some new providers to the table, but it all aligns with our prevention efforts. So the whole process, the PAYS is a wonderfully useful tool for us. And as Chris said, it's embedded now. It's not, are we going to do it? It's, we will do it. So I encourage you to, reach out with any questions, any thoughts and comments, and we'll be more than happy to help.
Denise, thank you so much.
I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you. We appreciate your excitement. I mean, that's PAYS on the ground right there. You are working this data, you're applying it in so many ways. And I loved how you shared practical ways to maybe to recruit and retain your members on your analysis team. Denise, thanks so much for sharing your successes with us. So we're going to move here in taking the very first steps after we download our data or take that data off the shelf. My, oh my, what do we do next? And we've received a lot of feedback from our first webinar series, feedback from you all saying, just give us some small bites, give us some first steps. So today that's our effort to do just that. So in the time that we have, here we are, we're at the table. Now what? So before analyzing our data, maybe there's some key questions that we should be asking ourselves, asking our team. This task can appear daunting at first, but how can we break it down? How can we divide and conquer? And obviously, I'd be excited to know when I look back at the polls as far as where do we stand with our 92 participants in the room today. Are you that coach? Are you the one that has the expertise that's leading this analysis process? Or are you new to PAYS? Because we have seen that lately with turnover in regards to new administrators coming on board and seeing some that don't have as much rooted experience in PAYS as others. But here we are, we're at this together, and obviously we're going to need a plan for reporting what we see when we look at this data, right? So we want to help you consider some ideas, share some things that will help us organize this data analysis process. So we talked about being at the table, and I'm going to call Phyllis back to the room just for a quick second. We're talking about being at the table when we discuss PAYS, but we might be at that virtual table. So what opportunities may we have, Phyllis?
So as someone who Zooms all day, every day, like many of you, and I hear daily that I am completely Zoomed out. The reality is that, while it's hard to sometimes see the value of what Zoom has brought, but it has. And, there are opportunities that being in this virtual space that we're able to seize that we didn't have pre-pandemic, quite frankly. We weren't in a space where, we did a little bit of sharing online and we do a webinar and that kind of thing, but actually working in a virtual space wasn't something most of us did. Some did, but most did not. So I really want to kind of just for a second get you to think about, how you can use your virtual space to get folks to your table and to keep them coming back. We're going to be, this is my own opinion, but I imagine, and my hypothesis is we're going to remain in a hybrid world from here on out. I believe that the Zoom has taught us that there are some, efficiencies that come with being able to Zoom together in a room. There's also some deficiencies that come out of that, but there are some efficiencies that where, even in small towns, folks don't have the time to jump in a car and, drive to another office and then come back and all that, but yet they know they can jump into a Zoom room and do some work. So really want you to think about that from the perspective, as well as if you are, let's say that you're engaging a service provider or maybe a county agency that's maybe way on the other side of your county, and having them come for these kinds of meetings just would not be within their capacity. So think about how you can use a virtual space to help get those folks around the table. Think about, and be creative when you get them there. Think about, are there ways that you can do in person as well as that hybrid space? You have a virtual space where folks can Zoom in, but some folks, they can get together and they have a desire to do that. So look at what that can look like. Look at your technology that you might have and have available to you. When you're in a meeting, keep it creative. It doesn't just have to be we're looking at each other and talking to each other. Jump into your whiteboard. Let folks do some, if you're prioritizing, use your annotate button. That's part of your top screen. If you look across your Zoom, let people vote that way. Explore other Zoom enhancement. There's a really great program. It's called Lucid Spark. And it's just Lucid Spark, like it sounds, it's spelled that way. And it actually will let you have this huge whiteboard. So you can have folks going in and doing all kinds of different projects in one virtual space that you can share at Zoom. You can update, people can really just, the sky's the limit. really encourage you to take a look at some of these enhancements to keep your other or your meetings interesting. And just as it says here, if you've got ideas that, you know, of how you've kept meetings interesting and you've kept teams engaged and you've helped people feel, you know, be a part in a participatory way, you know, drop them in the chat. I'd love to see them, love for you to share them with other people. But keep all of this in mind because virtual is not going away. Kelly, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Thank you, Phyllis. In the time we have remaining, we wanted to leave everyone with 4 practical steps, whether we're talking about that full school profile report that we're all accustomed to seeing when it comes out April 30th, or whether we're talking about that newly released preliminary highlights report that came out the first week of December. So no matter what, we got to read the report, right? We got to download and read. Denise shared how rich the data is and the benefits that it has for our schools and communities. So we know that PAYS is instrumental in helping our youth and students succeed. We know that PAYS directs our overall prevention planning. So number one, reading that report, that's essential. So when we're doing so, we really want to explore what we call our youth BPAs, behaviors, perceptions, and attitudes. And many of us might be experts in that area, being involved with PAYS for so many years, and some of us on the call are newer to it. So when we're looking at exploring the behaviors reported by our youth, we're looking at things like alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. It could be gambling. It could be commitment to school, involvement in pro-social activities, bullying, suicide risk, mental health, you name it, it is in the PAYS. We're also looking at that perception element. Students are assessed, their perception of risk or harm in experimenting with drug XYZ, or if it was used for a longer duration in time. We also know perceptions surrounding parental disapproval. That influences the decision-making of our adolescents. And finally, with attitudes, our students are assessed in the areas of their attitudes around alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, their peers' use, etc. So as we're reading the report, we're obviously, our attention is probably going to be drawn to those highs and those lows, what we're seeing. But we want to look also if there's any patterns in our data as well. So that may appear as a daunting task. So let's break it down and make it simple. Let's move on to step 2, where it's the good news, where we can divide and conquer. So a good rule of thumb, a practice that I'm learning from my partners at EPIS and beyond, is it's really a great idea for your team to be well-read, have it understood, really focus on what we refer to as section 7 of the profile report. What we're speaking of here is that risk and protective factor piece. It's usually on or around page 84 of your profile report. And this is where it's presented the why or the root cause of the behavior that we're seeing students report. So that is essential for all team members to have a great foundation, a great understanding of risk and protective factors. So if you're a note taker, I would say step 1, all team members, let's get familiar with section 7, risk and protective factors. Then we might consider, or you may choose to consider, dividing the sections of the PAYS, simply looking at that table of contents and calling your attention to sections 2 through 6. And there you're going to be finding, oh, there's that section on ATOD, use and access. We're also, antisocial behaviors is a piece. Community and school climate and safety is a section. Social and emotional health, obviously that's where we're finding our mental health, depression, suicide risk data. There's also systemic factors, and that is where we're getting into the perception of risk, the disapproval, and attitudes towards use. So those sections are laid out for you. A great tip or a great idea might be to assign or have your team members select one section to work at or work on with a buddy, with a partner. So you've assigned 2 of your team members per section to kind of divide and conquer and make this a little bit more doable. Let's move on to step 3, where we're talking about setting completion goals. Now, really, this can be twofold. We are looking at setting goals around the analysis process itself. So you might look towards a goal of, hey, let's set aside 15 minutes of our meeting or 30 minutes of our meeting where Tony and Kathy are going to report back out on the social and emotional health component of PAYS. So that could be a goal where you are orchestrating meetings and having devoted time set aside to review sections of PAYS data. Again, bit by bit, meeting by meeting. Another goal you may have as far as the process end of things of the data analysis piece is you may set a goal that says, hey, by September 1st, we will present our PAYS data and our prevention plan to our school board. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when we're looking at set completion goals. Also, I mentioned that it's twofold. We obviously will be setting goals that will speak to our targeted behaviors or the target of youth and protection factors. So we might choose to set a goal that says to us as we look at our data and we look at our strategies and we do some resource assessment, we're going to implement a targeted evidence-based program to 50% of our families who may have 6th grade students. So that setting your completion goals, remember that it's twofold, and hopefully we're going to have time to run through some tools real quick to assist you with that process. Step 4, moving on to those team leaders of the analysis data team. You know, they always need to be a few steps ahead, right? So some great tips or tricks for the team leaders of this process. It might be for, if you're serving in that capacity, get familiar with our PAYS resources and tools that are available. In fact, we're going to be showing you a 3-page document here today that you could actually provide and prepare your team members with as they devote time, that dedicated time with a partner to a particular section that they're going to tackle. We have a 3-page document that would help them lead them and guide them through that process. So as a quick overview, step 1, we're identifying those behaviors, those perceptions, and those attitudes that have been reported by your students. But we want to also be aware that these are positive behaviors too. We're not only looking for the concerning behaviors, and we want to celebrate the successes like we have heard from Denise and look for those areas to celebrate. We're going to be identifying our challenges, our strengths as we look at risk and protective factors. Remember, those are our root cause of our behavior, so we can't let that go untouched. And finally, we want to summarize and we want to report out what the survey is saying. In determining our targets and behaviors and prioritizing the causes of the targeted behaviors, a few questions that we might want to consider. We're going to start down here at this section first. We want to be asking ourselves, what's the magnitude of this particular factor or behavior? What's the extent of it? Is it our largest issue? Is this behavior getting worse over time? We know in our PAYS data, our next version will come out. We'll be comparing data from 17, 19, and 21. So the data will be right there for some time trend analysis. We're asking ourselves, how severe is this problem? Or what's the consequence of not addressing this particular behavior or concern? And obviously, we always want to use that other data that Phyllis has mentioned to us with comparing our data as well. Let's see if we can go here. And some of the items that we're breezing through today can be found on our PAYS how-to guide. For instance, our discussion that we just had right here, it will be included in your PowerPoint, okay? And that reminder of how essential our risk and protective factor data is, again, is all right there provided for you. You'll be able to just go to that link. Also, we wanted to bring up in module 2 of the PAYS guide, determining how to target your focus area. We've talked about the magnitude severity trends. Here we have a worksheet to help the partners at your table work through that particular data. So again, if you're not able to see it super clearly here today on our webinar, that link will be included in your PowerPoint. Okay, let's get this back up to full view if we could. Hopefully you're seeing that working good on your end. Some of us are very familiar with looking at if you are a prevention partner, if you're working for your single county authority, you're very aware of DDAP's needs assessment process. Some of you may be less familiar with this tool, but again, great questions on here to cause us to think. But this is an assessment process that spans a number of years and has several phases to it. So again, you just might want something that you want to look into, but I want to be sure that we give our guest that's on the call, Amanda, time to share her successes too, as we talk about moving forward with plans. I know Amanda Cserr has been at the table. She's very involved with plan development and has some successes to share with us. So I'd like to pass the mic to Amanda.
All right, thank you, Kelly, and thank you for having me here. So I'm the prevention coordinator at Clarion County's Promise, and I'm also the mobilizer for the Clarion County Family Net Collaborative Board, the Clarion County CTC site. And I've been involved with them for since 2005 in one way or another. So when asked to think of an example of how we have used our PAYS data, the one example that jumped out at me was one that happened at the beginning of my time, and it was such a building block for the rest of, for the last several years, that I wanted to share it. So when I started in 2005, we were roughly using the communities that care model of prevention, and we looked at our PAYS data and other community data for anything that was really alarming, concerning. And we looked at those trends that she talked about here just a minute ago. We looked at areas that were high, just that jumped out at us. And in 2006, we saw one glaring area of concern was that over a quarter of our seniors were reporting driving after drinking. More specifically, in the years 2005, 2007, and 2009, between 25 and 32% of our seniors were reporting this behavior. So we obviously were very concerned about this, just at that number, but then we also saw that we were over 10% higher than the state as well. So we looked at those state numbers, and we saw that that was very high as well. And we knew that as a single agency and as somebody who was new to the youth survey and to CTC and any of this stuff, we could not tackle this on our own. So we put together a team from our collaborative board to work together on addressing this issue. Our planning team, consisting of our county drug and alcohol prevention specialists, community members, and schools, sat down and we worked out a plan to try to combat this issue. We needed individuals on our team that were professionals in the field. I was not a professional in substance abuse, so we needed professionals in the field who could explain this a little bit more to us and bring more to the table that way. We needed people who had access to students and possibly, hopefully, parents as well. So the schools were on board. And we also had community members who saw this as an issue, saw this as a concern, and wanted to do something to help. In our discussion, our team had to ask a few vital questions, probably more than a few, but I'll share just a few of them. Are there any programs currently addressing this issue? What are schools or other agencies doing that might be, working towards this? We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So if somebody already had something going on, we wanted to know about it. Of course, the question was, why is this so high in Clarion County? Why are so many students reporting this? Why are they doing this? And then also, what can we do about it? And how can we get this information to both students and parents and the community overall? So together, we sat down and we worked out a plan, and we used a variety of different strategies, including spreading awareness about the issue and also using research-based prevention programming to reach out not only to students, but also to parents in the community. So schools offered space for programming free of charge. They partnered with us to do that. We supported our drug and alcohol agency in getting those prevention programs out to the schools and to the community. And we encourage community members to step up and be involved and share, bring about awareness to the issue, because a lot of people probably just really didn't know that many were doing this. So we wanted to do that as well. So after all that discussion and all that hard work, our first question is, did we do anything, right? We want to know how effective this was. So of course we looked back at our PACE surveys and our reports, and we were very grateful to find out that number decreased quite a bit over the next years after this plan was in place, after we were approaching it from a number of different angles. And even in 2019, while it's still not below the state, we are below 8% of students reporting this behavior. So it went from a high of 32% of seniors reporting this to a low of just under 8% of students. So we were really, really excited to see that, and it helped encourage us to keep going. The one agency, one angle, it wasn't going to do it. We needed that team approach, and we needed to all work together to make that positive impact in our community. And it was an example I wanted to share, because even though it happened, several years ago, been here for a while, it was what laid that foundation and what really, really helped us to continue to work together. We've had our ups and downs over the years, as anybody does, but I think we are still currently in a place where we are working together, and we are still building up those relationships and keeping those relationships going, so that we can continue to make those positive impacts in our community and in our county. So handing things back over to Phyllis.
Need to unmute there. You'd think I Zoom enough, I'd remember, right? So just very quickly as we're finishing up, because we want to be sure we have enough time to answer questions, and we have one question from Howard in the Q&A, we know. So start thinking about questions that you want to share with us. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about okay, what now? We've given you a lot of great information, and where do we go from here? So the first thing is, what PACE data do you have right now? And we did a little poll in the beginning to see how many, because our past first Wednesdays have been around the preliminary highlights report, which is that early release of data that we've talked about, that has some COVID and remote learning and a few other substance and mental health type questions in it. All of your districts have it. It's also online. Your county report for those counties who had more than 2 online participating school districts, those reports are there. You can find those at the PACE.pa.gov site. You have that. You also have your past PACE reports and other data points that you can take a look at and go, okay, start doing a little bit of comparison. You also are definitely in a place with some of this past data, with this preliminary report. Start thinking about your risk and protective factors and what they looked like. I know it's going to be, one of those, oh, but it was COVID. This is what we learned. The reality is, this is our normal now. I don't like new normal. It's our normal. And this is how our kids are feeling and what they're seeing. And so we need to really start thinking about what that looks like as far as your risk and protective factors go. And you can start that thought process already. Now, when you get your new reports come April 30th, that's when those profile reports will be released. You want to be sure to take a look at obviously what the new data says, but you want to spend the time now. My suggestion would be to kind of look at where you were, look at that preliminary report, and prepare to get that data at the end of April. When you do that, you'll get through this process very quickly. Also start use this time to invite those partners we talked about to your table. Use this time to start building those relationships. What can you use? That preliminary highlights report. If your district did not participate online and you don't have that report from them, use your county report. And we definitely encourage you to kind of just start getting the cobwebs out, if you will, to get your mind thinking about PACE. We have mentioned that there are several tools, the PAYS how-to guide, the multi-year state and county reports, all of which are the PAYS guide. That's what Kelly took you to earlier. She's going to give you some links here in a minute. Again, as a reminder, the state and county reports are on the PAYS website. And also, all districts will be getting a cross-tabulation tool. That is a new tool that will be available to all districts, whether you participate online or not. And that will be available coming in June. We will have training on that in one of these sessions. So that's another tool that you are going to be able to start looking at how 2 data points, when you overlay them, what does that look like? So it's a really cool place for us to be in. Here are some of your the links that we have that Kelly walked you through. This is part of what we call the PAYS highlight guide, and or the PAYS highlight, listen at me, the PAYS workbook guide and workbook. Lots of great information in here. Break this apart. We modularize the workbook so you can take it out in small bites. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. You know, here's some questions to ask, some things that, you know, we do this work a lot, but it's really good. Even if you've done this a long time, go back, use this as a guide to kind of guide your thinking and your conversations. Kelly's now clicking on an actual worksheet. It's in Word, so you can type in it. We suggest this is divided by section. Hand this out to your different subgroups within your team, if you in your however you decide to divide and conquer. This is a great way to get everybody on the same page. Also a great way to facilitate a meeting, whether you're in person or virtual, because everyone's been tasked with that homework of answering those questions. And then finally, here's how you set your priorities. And Kelly had walked you through this before. So we definitely want to encourage you to, you know, use this time to really gear up and get yourself in a place of really starting to think about your pays and think about where you're going. So we are going to spend our last couple of minutes. I want to be sure to answer. We're running a tad bit behind today, but I really want to make sure that we answer Howard's question that he posed earlier. His question was, what are our thoughts about including youth as part of our pays analysis? You know, earlier I really did promote that and think it's a really great idea. I will say, when you bring them to the table, make sure it's mindful and meaningful for all of those around the table. It's having them come and check in at a meeting and they're just going to fit in. No, I need to be a little bit more formalized than that. Make sure that again, they're engaged throughout the conversation. Make sure that your adults are engaged in that and definitely thinking in that in that space. I think all the other questions were answered. We definitely, next time, if you have questions, definitely send them to us because we are running a bit short on time. And I am going to hand it back to Kelly to take us home.
All right, so what's on our horizon in regards to First Wednesday webinar in March? Please be looking forward to different sectors' use of data. So we're talking about integration points here with the PAYS and how does the work of the different sectors impact that reduction of risk and increase in protection with our youth. And then coming in April, we'll further dive into our PAYS guide and how to use it. And you can see the upcoming events there on your screen into May and June.